I'm grateful to our Creator to have brought us together. And we can work as a team, as religious leaders.
We have extremists in both our religions.
Because those are usually early warnings that there's something wrong or there's some conflict.
Who is safe in this country anymore against this evil spirit that has descended amongst us?
You see, we elected our parliamentarians to go there and defend our rights. But you know, you cannot give a power to a third party that you did not give away.
These rapists don't just say we are going to rape the Christians or the Muslims. They are raping all the women. And it's a heart-wrenching thing to all of us.
I become a very worried person when I hear generalizations. I become a very, very worried person.
We have become a part of the international community and must expect that others take account of what we are doing and what we are saying.
What about you and me? What can we do to make a difference?
Whilst the competition for heart and soul has been there, we have never sat down together and find out how do we resolve small disputes and conflicts that's between ourselves.
We continue to believe is a great nation with great possibilities, and we remain strongly committed, and I am personally committed to helping Kenyans realize that potential. But as I reflected on the challenge before me, I decided that it was time for us to open the doors of the World Bank and to begin reaching out to all stakeholders, including faith-based organizations.
Many aid-granting organizations, including the World Bank and many embassies and development agencies such as DFID, the British Department for International Development, and USAID, many of them have suddenly realized that what they call faith-based organizations are the best way of delivering grassroots effective change.
Muslims have their faith and Christians have their faith. But the events of 9/11 have shown us these two faiths have to talk. Hopefully in words and not through violence. We feel it's important in the context of what is happening in the world for Christians and Muslims to be able to dialogue. We need to understand what the other party believes. We need, in some cases, to be sympathetic to those beliefs. We need to prepare the ground for the time when these two communities are going to formally negotiate the place of religious faith and religious expression in the new constitution. So this is what FIBA Kenya was looking at when we were holding this consultation.
It started as a dream, but we are so excited that we could be able to meet and interact the way we have done.
The consortium was hosted by FIBA Radio Kenya and Baraka FM and sponsored by the British High Commission. And it was intended to develop conflict resolution skills to enable participants to address issues of concern in society.
Almost 4 months since we last met here in Mombasa at the Sun and Sand Hotel from January 26th to 29th for the first high-level Christian-Muslim leaders consultative meeting. We met here at that time because we all believed then, as we do now, that it is important to promote interfaith understanding in order to avert violent confrontation with all its implications on society and the larger international community. It is true that a number of events have taken place since our last meeting, which in a way illustrates some of the problems and issues interfaith dialogue and conflict resolution seek to address. Ladies and gentlemen, in less than a month after our last meeting, Abdul Rahman was arrested in Afghanistan for converting to Christianity after his family tipped the police. The prosecuting attorney, Abdul Wasi, told the court that Rahman is a traitor to Islam and is like a cancer of Afghanistan people who should be executed according to the Islamic law and Afghanistan constitution. Going back to 2003, the Indian government was preparing to enact a law that would require any individual seeking to convert to a different religion to submit a written application to local authorities. To receive permission to convert, applicants would have to show that they had completed secondary school. Unauthorized conversions would be punished by fines of 1,000 rupees or $21 per day. This, despite what Article 18 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states, and I quote, "Everybody has a right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or her belief."
One of the important things that an interfaith dialogue and discussion needs to address is the issue of stereotypes. Stereotypes are things you think about the other community that may not be true. There are also things you feel or think about the other community that are true. It is very important in any serious discussion between two communities for people to put these issues on the table. A key objective was to encourage participants to engage in dialogue and not debate. A project in the US called the Public Conversations Project has done a lot of work in trying to encourage groups with strongly differing views to adopt a dialogue and not what they call a debate forum. Dialogue is meant to help the participants get more knowledge, is meant to help the participants act as individuals, speak as individuals, and not as representatives of official views. It's meant to encourage the participants to express their disagreement with their own side where they disagree, and their agreement with the opposite side where they agree with the opposite side, without feeling threatened, without feeling intimidated. Debate, on the other side, is about exchanging known positions. So you're not learning anything new. In fact, you don't even have to be in the same room. You could simply exchange your documents. Your positions are known, your stand is known, and all you're coming to do is to score points or win. We were not calling the two communities to see which group will win. We are calling the two communities to see if we can increase understanding, increase mutual trust, increase confidence.
They have their faith, we have our faith, everybody his own way. But we have got something in common, we are all Kenyans. When matters concerning Kenyans, we come together. And other than that, we have got nothing to do with one another.
We consider you Muslims to be enriched peoples of Kenya.
As far as any religion is concerned, there is the faith, which each person has his own faith. But there should be commonality as far as morality is concerned.
But if somebody just comes from your back and beats you, I mean, you'll be perplexed.
Another major issue, of course, overshadowing the holding of the first consultation was the question of religion and terrorism. Kenya has been the object of religious terrorism or terrorism associated with religion 3 times now in our history. First time was in 1980 when the Norfolk Hotel was attacked. Second time was in 1998 when the US Embassy was attacked. The third time was in 2002 when Paradise Hotel was attacked and there was an attempt to attack an Israeli plane that was taking off. Globally, Islam has been associated by those people engaged in some of those terrorist acts with terrorism. Unfortunately, this has led to a lot of stereotyping, a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of unnecessary profiling.
The world has become a very small place, and as we know through the media, what happens at the end of the world is immediately known to the other end of the world. And because of global problems and geopolitical problems, we have been influenced and somehow we have been drawn into these global issues. For example, the Middle Eastern issue, the Israeli-Arab problem, the recent attack on Afghanistan and Iraq, and the continuous media campaign demonizing Islam as a terroristic religion. Definitely this has created a lot of sensitivity amongst the Muslims. And the portrayal of Islam as a terrorist religion is also influencing and poisoning the minds of a lot of Christians in this country. These are some of the problems we are having.
I was very much touched to know that there's need for education, and we need to educate our people what Islam and vis-a-vis terrorism is. And I think this is a good forum, and I hope it continues. However, can you tell us who these terrorists have been and what the Muslims are doing with it? Because it appears that the terrorists so far, in my understanding, have been Muslims, even though terrorism is not Islam.
On the issue of terrorism, it has been Muslims who have been doing, it seems it have been Muslims who have been doing this, and that's why it is denting the Islamic image. Well, brothers, in a very nutshell, it's not only the Muslims. It is a general phenomenon. People can use whatever means to achieve their political goal. People can use, where religion is fitting, they use religion. Where ethnicity is fitting, they use ethnicity. Where culture is fitting, they use culture. Where the power of money is necessary, they use money. They use everything to get to their political goal.
In the United Kingdom today, if you say terrorism, the word Islamic is implied. That is wrong. It is a wrong way of thinking, but it is a way of thinking into which people slip very, very easily through ignorance. So the 6 R's of avoiding conflict: researching, relating, relieving, risking, reconciling, resourcing. There are a number of hard issues that this raises, and also very obvious benefits. Preventing conflict is very difficult to demonstrate. There's an old children's joke that my children, every time they go to their schools, come back and tell me, which is that a man paints his gate pink outside his house, and someone says, this is in London, and someone says, why have you painted your gate pink? And he says, it's to keep the elephants away. And the man says, but there are no elephants in London. He says, yes, well, you see, it works.
But I think we can all learn a lot from these experiences. And I must thank the organizers for spoiling my enjoyment of that lecture, that beautiful lecture by Justin Welby. Thank you.
Before we held the consultation, we were asked what were the risks of holding the consultation and how we were going to manage those risks. One of the key factors or ways of managing those risks was in our selection of resource persons. We felt by bringing in the Muslim Christian Dialogue Forum of Kaduna, we were bringing in people who had been involved in a civil war. We were bringing in people who had been warlords in a civil war. We were bringing in people who, despite their violent confrontation, had found a way of speaking and had found a way also of reconciling other warring parties. This was Pastor James Hui and Imam Ashafa.
The Honorable Najib Balala, our former Minister for Culture and National Heritage.
Thank you very much, Professor. My question is Sharia. And then the issue of the Qadi's court in the Constitution being perceived as Sharia law. Maybe it will be appropriate for Pastor James and also the Imam Muhammad to tell us the experience and what is Sharia and how is it implemented in Nigeria, and then what is its impact.
I learned you burn some churches and some mosques here. I don't know who did it, but that is anti-Sharia. That is anti-Islam. If the scriptures say you must not touch even a shrine, talk less of a place of worship of people. There are conditionalities for which jihad is permitted, and there are rules and regulations. But then when we even want to do this struggle, sometimes we allow our sentiments, our sense of judgment to override what our spirituality has dictated to us.
We all know after the collapse of the Cold War, the world had hoped that there would be the universal peace dividend. What do we have instead? Absolutely hot wars springing up. They say in the last 5 years, a lot of wars have sprung up. What do we have to say? In fact, just to underline the crucial significance of this get-together, I hope out of this meeting there can be hope in Africa. Because these wars are now taking a religious dimension, and we all know it. Therefore, with the bishops and the chief Qadi here, and the need to have religious tolerance, where people will not say, my religion is the best or your religion is the worst, and particularly in the wake of what happened after September 11th, when all of us know the world has really never been the same again. What are we going to do as citizens of this planet Earth? My sister, Professor Wangari Maathai, could talk to us a lot about how we are damaging this, the real dangers of climate change and all. But some of these things are man-made and now religious-made. I think Kenya can set yet an example in showing religious tolerance, where we get the various communities, the Hindus, the Muslims, the Christians living together peaceably. I think the rest of the world will smile with a bit of hope.
The Bomas Convention on the Constitution that was set up to discuss the new constitution for Kenya and to make recommendations on the place of Islamic courts and religion involved a lot of confrontation between members of the two faith communities. But the issue of Islam in Kenya did not begin with Bomas. In fact, Islam has been on the Kenyan coast for 1,200 years and only came formally into the constitutional framework in 1895 when Kenya was becoming a colony. But the coastal strip was never a colony.
Miaka 40 tangu kupata uhuru na kabla ya hapo. Na tangu miaka 40 hii yote hajatokea mtu yoyote kulalamika. Vipi leo lalamishi hili la nini? Haya ni mambo ya kutoka nje.
Recently, when Kenya decided to overhaul its constitution again, the issue of Islam in the constitution came up again for the third time in Kenya's constitutional history. There was confrontation. There were many radical statements made. There was a breakdown in terms of communication, in terms of trust. There were threats of secession, and there were a whole lot of other things said.
I don't know whether he's a member of... I saw him around even today somewhere, but I don't know him, you know. And he actually repeated a threat he had issued to me in Mombasa when we had a conference in Mombasa before we came to Bomas. And he said that they are going to declare a fatwa on me.
It is within that context and following those discussions, that the referendum on the new constitution, or rather the referendum to adopt or not adopt the new constitution, ended up in the new constitution being rejected. A critical factor in the rejection was the teaming up of both the Christian and the Muslim groups against the proposed constitution, because the Muslims felt it didn't give them sufficient protection and the Christians felt it gave them too much.
Most of the good things we found in Christians is exactly what was good things that Christians were found within the Muslims. So automatically, first of all, when we saw those things, we started laughing. So the ice was broken. And from there, I don't need to talk too much. The confrontation ended up there, and we started looking at how are we going to move this process forward.
I was actively involved in the referendum. I was on the side of the evangelicals that were really opposing the Catholic Court. If I had understood the Catholic Court like I understand it now, maybe it would have been different. But because I never understood, I actively opposed it. Because of opposition, I never understood. But because I've met many brothers and sisters from the Muslim faith, and they have sat down with me and explained to me what it meant, I now can explain to many Christians what it means.
What interested me most was the issues that we had never discussed. We as Christians, and I remember this even at the cabinet level, we had discussed some of the issues. The northern part of Kenya is predominantly Muslim. We know for a fact Christians have been trying to set up churches there, and they are either being burnt or being destroyed in all sorts of manner of forms. It was very interesting for me, and I really enjoyed the frank discussions we had with them, that I could raise an issue and ask them, why do you ban our churches in northern Kenya? Why don't you allow us to set up churches in northern Kenya? And you know, it was so nice that at the end of the day they were able to tell us they do not understand why Christians need so many churches. They don't understand why, unlike the Muslims who have only one mosque that serves a whole town, why couldn't we also have one church that serves the few Christians who are there? And this got us thinking, and I think, and I know some of the churches are now beginning of thinking of putting up one church to be shared by various denominations. To me, that was something that had bothered me for some time. And more recently, or soon after that, or about that time, we had the problem of two Christians that were actually killed in northern Kenya, a place called Wajir, and we were able to discuss these incidents frankly, and they were able to assist in terms of explanation and also by talking to their community of the need not to do it in future.
That look, this is the understanding now, and I know it is the truth. Then you are transforming the entire Kenya, because you were strategically selected, whether by error or by omission or commission. The people that are here are Kenyans and Kenyans' spiritual leaders. And so if there is problem in Kenya, it is you. And if there is no problem in Kenya, it is you. So we want to, this is a catalyst for the further deliberation. If you agree, you meet again and say, okay, why did you do this? Under this, you say, oh, sorry, this was wrong. Oh, this is not Islam, it's culture. This is not Christianity, it's culture. Why do you dress half naked? Why are your women dressing in pant? Why do they dress and show their figure? I say that is Christianity. And then somebody says it's not Christianity. It is not every John that is a Christian, and not every Muhammad is a practicing Muslim. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much. Because we have so much, thank you very much.
So for me, success meant, despite those initial tensions, and I think the first day, the Muslim meeting took about 7 hours. And the facilitator of the Muslim meeting, Imam Ashafa, played a sterling role, including preaching to the Muslims in their mosque on the Friday, and doing all he could to keep them engaged. We saw tensions breaking down visibly. We saw body language changing visibly. We saw people who are not sitting together for meals, sitting together. And we saw people feeling it can be done. We can create relationships.
One, how many of you have attended a wedding or a funeral or party of a member of the opposite faith since the last consultations? I want to see your hands. None. So tomorrow morning, we want to find, well, that is a reprieve. How many of you have since developed genuine friendship with members of the opposite faith? Can I see hands? Thank you. I congratulate them for leading the way and practicing my teachings. Just to prove a point, I was brought up in an Anglican family. I grew up among the Catholic community. I have a daughter whose name is now Samira, whose husband is Abdallah Mohammed, and my two grandchildren, one is Fatima and the other one is Murad.
Moving into the field with the skill, with the knowledge you acquired, with the experiences you have together, what are the challenges you face back home?
Enthusiasm on sharing what happened at the first level was met with such talk from people from both faiths who are not here, that it was a waste of time and it was a waste of resources to try and bring us together.
When I heard that the meeting had been successful at the end, I had a sigh of relief because my expectations were that these two faiths will not come to such a wonderful conclusion. So I would like just to say that the first meeting was a wonderful breakthrough for me because when I got the news from Brother Naminyi and Justin, whom I had just visited in his house in Coventry, I just sighed a sigh of relief and said, God is in our midst. So for me, the first meeting was a wonderful breakthrough and it broke all the expectations and misconceptions.
My experience or challenge is how to convince pessimistic members within our fold that this is a worthy cause.
Doubt as to whether the other party is sincere. Why did he come? Maybe he had another motive. Isn't that a big challenge?
My challenge is on how to deal with a mutated or the current state of deception whereby whereas people say, yes, we can talk together, yet deep, the real actions speak differently. And so you are not very sure on how to deal with a chameleon.
Prior to the first consultation, I asked Honorable Nyaga, what is your definition of success? He told me, if you can keep Muslims and Christians under one roof for 3 days, that is success. Doesn't matter what they're saying, doesn't matter how they're saying it. Just holding them there. And I saw what he meant because these people wanted to walk out the first day. So for me, success was the fact that the first consultation proved that conflict resolution works. There are actually proven conflict resolution techniques that can bring two parties in conflict together on one table without the other running away.
When we came here, our attitude was one of defense. We are preparing ourselves to answer the charges that were going to be laid out against the Muslim community. So we were preparing for an offensive. And from what I have gathered, our brothers and sisters of the Christian church were also having similar feelings.
Confronting the world's fastest growing religion. which is Islam. So there are those who think it's got to be a matter of confrontation.
It is within our religious confines to make sure that we play a big role, that this country reduce the numbers of those brothers and sisters who are poor.
But the defense lawyer for him asked me, what do you think you contributed to this accident? And I said, of course, nothing. I mean, if you know any traffic rules, he was wrong and I was right. And he said, but do you realize that if you had stayed at home, if you were not
The world has been facing a religious conflict through the history of human beings. And up to now, we still have this problem. And this problem has caused a lot of damage to the human beings.
I don't want him to die as a Christian. I want him to die as a Muslim. That is me. And if you ask him, he will tell you he wants me to die as a Muslim. Right?
Yeah, I want him to die preaching Jesus Christ.
I do believe the problem of religious intolerance is more in the north than in the south. Because we have lived for hundreds of years together without any problem. It is the influence of the media, the films, the newspapers that's bringing problems to us here. So we want a homegrown solution.
Because now we could talk frankly, and we are beginning to become friends, and we had dealt even with issues such as the cartoon of Muhammad that created a crisis in Denmark and around the world. And we had even visited the ambassador of Denmark as a group of Christian Muslims. A few weeks later, one of our Christian radio stations, called Hope Radio Stations, was attacked by a group who appeared to be young Muslims.
Prior to Hope FM, government had set the pace by attacking KTN and banning the newspapers of Standard, all of them owned by the same company, because as the government said, the press was going to print or the television station was going to air material that the government disagreed with.
Hata kwa sasa nikipata sababu ya kufanya hivyo huko nitafanya.
What message was the government sending? If you disagree with what somebody is saying about you, you attack them. That was now followed by the attack on Hope FM, by people who disagreed with what Hope FM was saying. The Christians who feel it's because of the program Hope FM was airing, critiquing the Muslim community. Presenters in that program had been threatened, and these people came with the intention of killing the two presenters and burning down the radio station.
Towards the church is something which we all condemn.
And we hope that the government will continue to provide security for the people of Kenya, not just for us, but for every Kenyan to feel confident that they are working in a free country, in a secure nation, where their lives are not intimidated.
But every right-thinking personality will condemn anything done in the name of destroying any place of worship for any people.
But we were able to call each other. I remember calling my Muslim colleagues and my Christian colleagues and tell them, what can we do to avoid a crisis? What is it we could do as the committee, the Christian Muslim Consultative Committee? What is it we could do that would reduce tension? I'm happy to say within a couple of hours, the next morning, the Muslims called a press conference and issued a very strong statement disowning the action of those young people who had attacked the radio station.
There was a feeling that there should be an expression of appreciation to those people who came out openly and publicly to condemn the raid and the attack on Hope FM station, and that there may be need for the joint group to issue a joint statement doing the same, so that the members of the public would get to know that the two religious communities are united in their condemnation of this attack. At the second level, there was also need for this group here present to understand the circumstances under which this attack took place, and to discuss or at least interact on the whole issue of why it is that many people seem to conclude that it is the Muslims, or at least there was a Muslim hand in this.
Subsequent to that also, a major factor which showed the basic misunderstanding, even by the perceived victims of the attack on Hope FM, was the fact that the victims in turn turned round to condemn the airing of the Da Vinci Codes.
We are requesting the president and the leadership and the minister for information aingilie kati na afunge ila mapanda na vyumba vyote ambavyo vinaonyesha sinema ya Da Vinci Code ambayo inamtukana na kumudhihaki Bwana wetu Yesu Kristo.
The Minister for Information to honor the wishes of the Christian community and stop this film from further propagating falsehood against our faith.
So starting with the government's attack on KTN because of intolerance, followed by the attack on Nairobi Pentecostal Church's Hope FM because of intolerance, followed again by the leaders of Nairobi Pentecostal Church, now attacking the screening of the Da Vinci Code movie, you can see a thread of intolerance. Hope FM should be able to say within the law what they feel about anybody or any religious system. So should the Muslim community. On the other hand, you can have a society where nobody is allowed to offend or be offended. And that's why Americans have said, in American law, nobody has a right not to be offended.
You know, like most people, we Danes normally feel confident, relaxed, and cozy when we are amongst ourselves. And until a few months ago, most Danes thought that that was how things were supposed to be. We could meet in our own little secure and, I must say, quite affluent corner of the world and enjoy each other's company. And we thought that everybody around us would find that quite okay, and that they liked us because we are such nice people. Experience has taught us that neither assumption was correct. 12 drawings depicting the Prophet Muhammad certainly demonstrated that. What was intended by one newspaper editor as an attempt to demonstrate how tolerant we are and how important the freedom of speech is in our society became a major international crisis, sparking off latent anger and frustration against the Western world amongst many millions of Muslims. Let me just make it quite clear, if anybody should have any doubts, we have got the message. The most important lessons that we have got from this experience is the importance of an open and understanding dialogue between people with different religious and cultural backgrounds as a means to create better appreciation of how others think, feel, and perceive.
Ngoja kidogo mama. Madam, ngoja kidogo. Shuka wewe. Mwambie jamii
The demonstration against the Danish embassy raised a number of fundamental issues. On one hand, the right to demonstrate is important and is there in our constitution. Citizens should have the right to demonstrate peacefully against any policy or issue that affects their lives in the country. On the other hand, who takes the responsibility when these demonstrations get out of hand? This is what we saw during the Danish cartoon demonstration.
What happened?
And I was traumatized, really traumatized by what I saw. And at that point, the issue was not why they were doing what they were doing, but the fact that somebody was dying right in front of me. Leaders of the Muslim community were telling us in the steering committee that the demonstrators who went to the Danish embassy were not part of the official demonstration. It's almost inevitable that there are radical and even criminal elements that will attempt to hijack any demonstration for their own purposes. Balancing the two becomes very difficult, and the results of that Danish cartoons demonstration outside the embassy are a very sad reflection of what can go wrong when such things happen.
Thank you very much, Brother James. Distinguished brothers and sisters, you are welcome back. And I feel with all the appetizers, because it's all appetizer we've been having since morning, we are going to the real thing now. And the real thing are what are the issues. We are going to use what we call smart analysis to knock them out. Then what we have left, if all sail through, good and fine. But if they don't sail through, we knock out what we are going to knock out. What we are comfortable with to handle within our reach for now.
You tried to cross them and see whether they are common. There is none of them that was common.
The Holy Prophet was teaching us that little knowledge is dangerous at times, and it can cause a lot of problems. Somebody who comes from outside, he doesn't know the surroundings of the people, how they're living together peacefully, how they have been tolerating one another, and he comes up with an idea from his own head and say, you have got to do something about this, or you have got to do something about that.
Within your smart analysis, I would hope that you would emphasize this element, that is this something that we as a group together, one, do we agree on this issue, that this is an important national issue that is common to both groups?
I think, let's take the drug issue. The drugs are not, when they come in this country, they are not geared to the Muslim children or youth or to the Christian. It is for our children, all of us. That is a common problem.
Something to increase the division to be left out. We, as Chief Kadhi was talking, he said we had a list. We had a long list. And we took out any issue that we knew would go towards creating a wider division than we have. And
we have noticed here what is happening. Some of you, some of us want the whole fruit. Some of us will want the juice, or we want both of them. For me, it is good.
As an example, with the National Council of Churches of Christ USA, it took us 11 months to agree on one issue of training or meeting one another in mosques in local communities nationwide. It took us 11 months to reach that agreement.
The pattern of thinking of the Muslim brothers and sisters appears to have been this direction, south, and the pattern of thinking of the Christian brothers and sisters was in the north.
First of all, we have to understand the objective why we are sitting here. We have come all the way. We are spending the last 2 days, most probably until tomorrow, to try to resolve issues that are pending and, bring the community together so that we understand one another better, we move together in the same direction. I think we have to look at our long-term objective instead of looking at short-term gains.
How can we live here happily? Only we trust one another. How do you trust? Start with working together on an issue you agree.
Okay, when we talk about the extremists, if our church is burnt and then we retaliate with the Muslim, all of us suffer. And we want to stop those extremists.
I would like to go home with the spirit that brought me here. And that spirit is the spirit of commitment to dialogue, commitment to staying together and talking to each other and just enjoying the fellowship that I've had here in the corridors of this hotel.
We need to interact with one another and know one another well, because if we do not know who the leaders are, it's very difficult to work on something together. So we need to know one another well.
And more than that, we have to create a bondage. Remember, me and Peter are talking together at least 2 or 3 times a week now. Before our last meeting, we were never meeting. We were never talking. A bond is being created. A glue is coming in place. What we want to do is this circle should be expanding. Our relationship with all of you at various levels will be bonded. Then we can come back and talk about the evangelicals who want to go to Wajir and start converting people. But right now, to me, my brother wants to go, the evangelical who wants to go there, I still don't even know him as much as I know Peter. So what I am saying is let us choose those issues. Let us choose those issues which are not controversial.
It would have been extremely unusual to have one meeting that was successful, followed by a string of successful meetings. There are conflicts that have taken as long as 40 years and have not yet been resolved, the Middle East being one. So the dynamics of the second conference were normal. And the challenge for us as FIBA is to carry on and not to give up.
Christians, Muslims getting together and consulting one another was such a great experience for me. And after that consultation, I went back and reflected the whole idea of these two great faiths coming together and consulting one another.
We do believe it's not only the question of asking, can they work together? They have to work together. They don't have an alternative. They're neighbors, they live together, their fate is sealed. This was chosen by God Almighty, and they have to work together.
And I think as we negotiate, even as we try to save lives, it's good sometimes to think on your toes.
So that is why I'm happy that we are here, so that we can work towards preventing, even if not genocide in Kenya, it is preventing the mistrust, preventing propaganda against a particular community or a particular religion.
So the challenge for you is, you should now take courage as faith leaders, as spiritual leaders, to engage with the media. The program I'm having has an open invitation to faith-based leadership to participate, to give a consistent appearance.
These events are an indication that your efforts to engage seriously in interfaith dialogue and consultation were both timely and very necessary.
So on behalf of FIBA Radio, I want to express our very sincere gratitude for all the time and the commitment that each one of you who are normally very busy have been able to give to us. And we hope that what we have started will not be an event, will be a process that will succeed. Thank you very much.